Welcome back to the Piping Show from the National Piping Centre. This is episode 32 and we've really been enjoying putting together some great new material for you over the coming weeks. Please do remember and subscribe to our channel. We're almost at the 2,000 mark, and when we do hit that, there's going to be some great prizes on offer. So yeah, we've got lots of cool, interesting stuff coming up on the show in the next episodes. And one of my favourite things that we started just a few weeks ago is the What's in a Tune series. So we've had some great feedback from that, from people saying that it really helps them get into the kind of get inside the tunes, and just a bit of insight into how different pipers approach different tunes. So that's going to be coming up weekly on our channel. So please remember to subscribe and share the National Piping Centre's channel. We're lucky here at the National Piping Centre in that we occasionally get people just appearing in to say hello and have a chat. And this week we're really pleased to have Finn and Hamish Moore for a chat on the show. And it's amazing to chat to both Finn and Hamish about how they started making pipes and how they're approaching new, interesting approaches to pipe making, and also talking about the new album, The Piper and the Maker 2. But right now, let's go over to Helen Urquhart for this week's news.
On Saturday the 29th of April, the Highlands and Islands Music and Dance Festival held its annual piping contest in Oban. The winner of the P&A grade Pembroke was Roddy McLeod, and the winner of the P&A grade MSR was Sarah Muir. Piping Live has announced that the Pipe Idol contest returns for 2023. Pipers aged under 21 will have until Friday the 2nd of June to submit their entries to take part in the event this year. You can find out more at bagpipe.news. This weekend, outdoor pipe band contests return across Scotland, with events in Dunbar, Banchory and Urquhart. For more information about these events, you can go to rspba.org and find out more at their calendar. We have a date for your diary, with the first ever Scottish Folk Day taking place on Saturday the 23rd of September. This is organised by the Trad Music Forum in conjunction with the European Folk Day that takes place at the same time. You can find out more at tradmusicforum.org. Next week we have a big Piping Live announcement coming. If you would like more information and to get first access for tickets, register for our newsletter at www.pipinglive.co.uk before next Tuesday evening to find out everything first.
Hello there. With today's special guests, I thought it prudent to take a look at one of the small pipes that is currently in our museum. So I've pulled out two items to show you. The first is a set of small pipes that were made by John Ban Mackenzie. We've talked about John Ban quite at length on this show, so I'll save you the recap. But we also have a set of accompanying bellows that are stamped D. McDougall Breadalbin. So the likelihood is that these bellows were made after the small pipes were made, as Duncan McDougall lived sort of towards the end and was working towards the end of John Ban Mackenzie's life. However, the border pipes here, small pipes, are a beautiful example of an old set of ebony and ivory small pipes that are representative of the small piping tradition in the Highlands of Scotland. Just a few things that I really like about this set of pipes is the way that the ferrules are recessed up above the blackwood, and this beautiful ring of blackwood inlaid into the ivory ferrule in the common stock. Unfortunately, the pipes are quite old and have undergone some whipping to repair, which is very common, especially with old ebony pipes. Now, when we think of the piping tradition in the Highlands of Scotland, we typically think of the Great Highland Bagpipe. However, there's a rich history of small pipes and bellows pipes being played in the Highlands of Scotland. Now, this isn't an area that I'm particularly an expert in, so I will defer to an expert and read you two accounts of the bellows pipes being used in the Highlands. These come from an essay written by Ian McInnes in one of his footnotes in this essay. He describes Sandy Alexander Bruce as follows: I must first have heard old Sandy in the early 40s, that's the 1840s, and I remember him quite well. He was a man about 5 feet 7 inches, sturdy and well set, of a ruddy complexion, clean shaven, not unlike Neil Gow in appearance. He wore a tartan coat with flaps embellished with silver gilt bullet-shaped buttons and trews. Pibrochs were his forte, but he also played marches, salutes, and dance music when necessary. He would scorn to play the latter, the dance music, on the pib mór, or large pipe. He reserved it for the pib cheannach, or bellows pipe, which he generally carried about with him on periodical visits to our place. Now there's another example that I'd like to read, which is Seton Gordon described the use of bellows blown pib cheannach by Callum McPherson and Badenoch in the late 1800s. In those days, dances would be continued for several nights in succession. The piper, having opened the proceeding with the great pipe, would then sit at his ease on a stool or bench and play dance music on the bellows pipe, hour after hour, the fingering and scale in both pib mór and pib cheannach being the same. I'd like to say a big thank you to Kim Carney, who helped me with the pronunciation of pib cheannach. I hope that I got it right. If you'd like to see these exhibits, they're on permanent display in our museum here at the National Piping Centre.
So, Finn, Hamish, thanks for popping in to see us here. A pleasure as always. And thanks for chatting to us on the show. So, what we do with most people is just ask, what's your story about how you started in piping, how you got into it in the first place. So, Finn, I guess your story is right here, so we should probably start with Hamish.
How I got into piping, well, my father was a piper and he was my first teacher. How I got into pipe making is slightly different because I used to be a vet and I was doing a locum in County Clare in 1981, just after the Troubles had started. I remember Bobby Sands had just died in the H blocks, and we arrived in County Clare and there were cartoons of Maggie Thatcher all over the place with a machine gun in her hands. It was pretty severe and a very Republican county. But I came back from that summer TV testing cows, having experienced the uilleann pipes in all the bars in Milton Malby playing with fiddles. My next door neighbour in Kingusie, John McCrae, was a really good piper, and his father before him was a piper. And he was a collector of pipes, like your dad. And I was extolling, I was really enthusiastic about the uilleann pipes, and I said to John McCrae one night over a bottle of vodka, I said, we've got to have an equivalent in Scotland. And John was a droll fella. We went off to bed. When I came down to my breakfast in the morning, there was a wooden box on my kitchen table, and when I opened it up, there was an early 19th century set of Scottish small pipes, complete with bellows in the box. That John's father had collected in Kinlochnagan around about 1920. So I took them to Hugh Cheap. He identified them, Colin Ross restored them, and the day I strapped them on, I knew my life had changed. Because all I wanted to do was make these things and play them. I kind of arrived home, as it were. It was easy, it wasn't easy money-wise giving up the veterinary, but it was easy on the head because I didn't really enjoy it. And my father's main hobby in life was turning wood. So he made the first few sets. He went up and spoke to Alistair Sinclair of William Sinclair and Son, and he's had some lessons. Of course, he was a tropical forester. He was had an encyclopedic knowledge of tropical hardwoods. So we had the very best of wood, and that's really how I got into it.
What year would that have been, or what period are we looking at there?
Well, we'd started before I formally retired from being a vet, so that would be 1984. 1982 was when I got those pipes back from Colin Ross, and I kind of played in a pub band in Kingusie all around the Highlands, using the pipes to accompany song, and there was guitar and flute and playing the flute. And then I met the boys from Jock Thompson's Bairns, and just as they were disbanding, Ian Hardy asked me would I go in to reform Corda with Rod Patterson and John Crowell and himself. And that was really, that was a kind of a gradual apprenticeship, and and quite severe as well. But all I knew at that point was how to play competition piping, and this was definitely not competition piping.
In at the deep end.
In at the deep end. Aye.
That's great. And I guess my old man must have been kicking about at the same kind of time, doing stuff
I
with
remember
footing about with pipes and
at the second meeting of the Lowland Border Pipers Society in the Black Bitch Tavern in Linlithgow. And your dad came along with bagged loads of pipes.
Yeah.
The Black Bitch, unfortunately and disgracefully, has been renamed by an English brewery who thought it unpolitically correct to call it the Black Bitch.
Yeah.
So it's been called something else now. But that's where it was in Linlithgow. And I remember your dad really well. And he had the most amazing collection of pipes and was inspirational. And by then, Gordon Mooney, Rob Wallace, Jimmy Anderson, Mike Rowan, they'd all got the whole thing going.
Yeah. I often talk about that time, like when we're doing classes and stuff about that. They call it the revival, I guess, but it must have been a really cool time when it was like, literally a handful of you. We're not talking about now, hundreds of people playing bellows pipes. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I've often fantasized about living through different periods of history. Like, it must have been great to be in Greenwich Village when Bob Dylan and Joe Baez were writing songs, or oh God, it must have been amazing to be with Michelangelo in Florence in the 15th century, But what I realise now, I lived through a period of Scottish history where we made this revival, as you said, happen. And it was a privilege, only you were so deeply immersed in it, you didn't know you were in it,
I guess that was all of these things, isn't it? You're so in it. And
until you look back and you work out that this was
that was it.
Yeah.
It was really. I was just dead lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
And I guess I suppose it's a good moment to say about the Lowland and Borders Piper Society being 40 years this year.
That's it.
That's right. Big celebrations. And you must be about 40 as well, eh?
Just a wee bit over, thanks.
Just because I know you're a few years younger than me, And I guess, when you grew up, Finn, it's probably very similar to my upbringing, where you were just surrounded by it.
Yeah,
I guess, I kind of laugh thinking that the only reason I started piping was because my mum wanted a bit of peace on a Tuesday and Thursday night, because my dad was at pipe band anyway, so it was like, get the reins off the band. But
it's funny to think that to get peace, she made you
I know. So what was your what's your memories of how you got into it?
I very much similar to you. It wasn't unusual. That was the thing. It was in the house all the time. Music was in the house all the time, whether it was on a record player back then, or Dad playing, or in the early days Dad was making in the house as well. So you could come home from school, head through to the workshop, and he'd be tuning up a chanter or doing stuff. And I suppose that way, it's kind of funny to think that though, but it just that was the norm.
Yeah.
It was so then to pick up a chanter or to go and start playing wasn't a big leap in terms of some people it would be like their parents wouldn't know anything about it, or and they were sending you away to your weekly lesson, and then you would come home and they would have no idea. But with us, it was just there all the time.
I remember you coming home from school and getting onto the lathe and turning the bits and pieces, at the age of 13 or 14.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, and and I suppose the only other really lucky thing was that Dad wasn't the first teacher, because that probably is a bit trickier in terms of we had a local man in the village in Dunkeld, Burnham and Dunkeld, and he took us every day after school, the primary kids for an hour and then the secondary kids for an hour. Every day. Yeah. So we didn't really have to practice. I mean, you played when you got home, but you don't.
But it was just what you did every day.
Yeah, you did it every day, and then you went and played football. And that was. Again, he created a big crew of us as well. There would be half a dozen to 10 kids from the primary school and the same number from the secondary school.
And we were saying that earlier, it's so important, that kind of community idea of it, isn't it? Doing it with your pals.
Yeah,
so
and that was the norm as well.
In terms of the making then, so did you always know that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it was that thing coming towards the end of school. There's a lot of kind of pressure or thinking of uni, you know, and people applying for uni and everything. And I didn't have anything that I wanted to do. Like, you know, I think that happens quite a lot now, where people are going, you know, I'm quite good at geography. I'll do a geography course or whatever. Whereas, I think, you know, if you've got you want to be a doctor, or, you know, those courses are much more easy to kind of say, right, that's what I really want to do.
Or something like that.
Aye. Whereas I didn't have that, so I just thought, well, I'll try the pipe making. I'd already started doing reeds with Dad the summer before, and it was just a way of having both the element of getting away and playing and teaching and fun, and then having something when you got back home. And it just kind of, I also in the back of my head always thought, well, if we end up falling out more than we get on, then, you know, I'll go and do something different, because I didn't want that to happen. But we got on pretty well, I think, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things to add to that. I think our kids regularly fell asleep to the sound of monumental sessions downstairs with the best players in Scotland, you know, in the kitchen playing. And I think that's pretty much the case. And the second thing Finn just said about making reeds, and I'll never forget what my really good friend in Vermont, brilliant uilleann pipe maker, Benedict Kohler, said. In order to make pipes, you need to be three things. First of all, you need to be a piper. Secondly, you need to be a reed maker. And the third thing is boring holes up bits of wood in the right place. So, I mean, in that order of importance, and I would put reed making as important, if not more important than anything, because that's the heart of the instrument.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we could redo that.
What's that?
Three most important things. First of all, you have to be mad.
So I guess, I mean, you guys have always, you know, been at the absolute top end of making pipes. Are you tweaking stuff all the time? Is that the kind of the maker thing where do you ever get a point when you go, that's it, and we're going to keep it like that? Are you constantly tweaking stuff?
I think it's just that thing of constantly striving for it to be better. So, and I mean, I think that it's the same with playing and things. You know, like if you want to be better, it's like all the little things, and if you change that, it can get it better. So you're constantly trying to get things out, or, you know, but equally in the back of your head, you're always wondering, can I get this to be better, more stable, or a better sound, or, you know, like more comfortable for people. And that's the only difficulty is the research and development side often takes. It's hard to do on top of getting
production, making them.
But there's absolutely no there's no kind of thought of we've nailed this process and that's it. You know, like you never. I don't think that would be. I don't think like creatively that would work. You know, like
as you say, like music, no one ever thinks, "Oh, that's me, I've got it." Or if they do, then it's you know.
Well, then even if you think like, "Oh, I've got that tune," and you don't think about it anymore, it's going to kind of come out that way. Like if you don't still inject yourself into the tune, and I think that's the same about pipe making. If you kind of don't put yourself into it, it'll tell at the other end. You know. So.
And I guess on that note, you've just released the new album. Is it released? Is it out?
It's out. Yeah. So we did an original kind of concept of the piper and the maker, and it was taking like people who played our pipes. And just kind of celebrating all these different amazing musicians who play our pipes, and that was done 20 years ago. Dad was like driving force behind that, and we did a live concert in Pitlochry Town Hall, and I just felt like after 20 years it was maybe time to do another one. As Gary West said, you know, there's a new generation come through, and but we kept some of the old, you know, the old boys there.
The old crew, yeah.
Dad made the cut, and Alan MacDonald and Gary West and myself, we were all on the first one as well.
Yeah.
We also, there's been a lovely resurgence. As well as the resurgence of the bellows blown pipes in general, there's been this kind of switch a little bit back to the key of C.
Mm-hmm.
And when Dad first started, that was actually the most popular key until we worked out that it was no use for playing with other people.
No.
And the A small pipes and border pipes kind of took over, and then, you know, all your teaching, the standard was all your teaching was done in A. But I think partly, you know, people having their A set up and everything, and 10 years later going, oh, I fancy a new set of pipes, you know, add to the collection. And partly, Alan MacDonald had stuck with the C's for singing with all through the 90s and 2000s, and his albums he'd played quite a lot in C. And then Breacha Campbell came along and decided that she wanted to kind of exclusively play in C. And that's really kind of kicked on with a lot of people going, oh yeah, I quite fancy that. So the whole album is actually everybody playing C small pipes.
Great.
So there's about 10 or 11 pipers, 12 cuts, 4 songs. So yeah.
Great. And where can we get the CD? The usual.
Bandcamp. And,
Yep, Bandcamp. Yep.
I'm going to put some in your shop actually.
Excellent. Get it in there. Yeah.
So if you're in Glasgow, come here.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah. So it's just Piper and the Maker 2 celebrating C.
Brilliant. And I guess the other thing we should chat about is you've gone up a key again. This new project.
We can't talk about that. Nobody's allowed to mention that, especially when we're promoting the C one.
But, no, but it'd be cool to just to get you know, a wee bit of, you know, tell us as much or as little as you want, but about the kind of B thing and
so,
B and Python Live performance.
Yeah. So I guess again through Breacha Campbell, actually she was doing just, it was in between one of the lockdowns or around one of the lockdowns, and she said she was doing a TV performance with Tiernan O'Dinkin, who you know well from Armagh, and he'd suggested to her that they could maybe do it with him playing his B uilleann pipes. He really got into playing them, the flatter key of uilleann pipes. And she'd been playing a lot with uilleann pipes with her D small pipes, which obviously naturally work. And she came to me and said, in 10 days time I've got a TV performance. What do you think the chances are you could like figure out, could we, you know, do it? And I kind of talked it round with her and said, well, what actual notes are you looking for? Because that was the starting point. It's like, what is the scale and the notes? And then with small pipes you start to work out that it's, you know, it's actually pretty straightforward in terms of where you drill things. I took a chanter that had been kicking around the workshop that was a mistake, and I taped holes and filled holes and re-drilled holes everywhere, and I've still got it. It's got about 16 different holes in it now.
There's your research and development right there,
and worked out that it was definitely doable, and got her that chanter for that TV thing. And from that, when kind of came out of lockdown, she thought of maybe doing a quartet. So myself and Breacha and Tiernan and Louise O'Hachi, who got Liam O'Flynn's B pipes.
Yeah.
And so we did that classic thing of went round the houses with a name and came up with NB.
There you go,
And we did a gig last year in the Willie Kennedy, and fortunately we're here at Piping Live this year, so really looking forward to that. For the first time, all 4 of us, the day before the gig, and just in a room, and the acoustic between the 4 sets. The B uilleann pipes are a bit more chilled out, and with the small pipes we weren't dominating then, and the sound was incredible. It was great. And,
brilliant.
I mean, you've played with the uilleann pipes, I'm sure, but the drone thing with the uilleann pipes, it's just incredible.
Yeah,
so.
and we're talking about that acoustic and that kind of the way the instruments come together.
Yeah,
is one that's like a really cool thing, and the drone, the chanter thing, where it's just it creates a whole different palette of.
And I think
sound,
the sound actually, we're ending out playing in the same octave quite a lot. It was a light bulb moment for myself and Breacher. We're kind of trying to work out quite a lot of the sets of tunes, and we were together teaching, so we had time. We were suggesting different tunes, and we wanted it to be a mix of Irish and Scottish, or the ones that have crossed over and you can play the different versions or whatever. And then it slowly dawned on us that they don't have effectively our low G,
Yeah.
whereas that doesn't happen if we're playing in the A and they're playing in the D Allen pipes, and they've obviously got that note.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden we knocked out loads of tunes, and it was their fault, which is unusual. And especially I think a lot of the Scottish tunes, that low G is really important.
Nice, yeah.
So we were trying to work around that as well, but it meant that often we were in the same octave, and then the sounds just kind of really blend.
Yeah.
You know, like the chanter sounds become really kind of blended together.
Great.
So
Well, we're looking forward to it. That's going to be Tuesday the 15th of August.
Wednesday the 16th.
Is it? Wednesday the 16th, so it is, yeah. Aye. You're right, it's Wednesday the 16th.
I mean, the fact you got Tuesday and the 15th right is impressive.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. It's going to be an amazing gig, and it's been great to have you both in and just have a blether and a wee drink together. And,
Lovely.
Thanks very much. We're looking forward to seeing you in August and before then, hopefully.
Aye, thanks
That's
very much,
great.
Finlay.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Cheers.